Okay, so we'll resume from economic growth and development. Fine. If you talk about this economic growth and development in outcome of democracy, so what do we find out? If you see that if democracies are expected to produce good governments, then is it not fair to expect that they would also produce development? If there is a condition that democracies are expected to produce good governments. So if people elect the government, then it is also expected that the good governments should also produce development, and also because of the democracies, what happened, development should occur. So on the basis of that, evidence shows that in practice many democracies did not fulfill this expectation. Which expectation? Not that development or produce development, that may be called as economic development. If you consider all democracies and all dictatorships for the 50 years between 1950 and 2000, so dictatorships have slightly higher rate of economic growth, right? So in compared to democracy, the inability of democracy to achieve higher economic development worries us. So definitely it's a kind of a little botheration that what now we live in the democratic country and we unable to achieve economic development, right? So or higher economic development. But this alone cannot be a reason to reject democracy. So you can't say that as you live in a democratic country, so democracy is the only reason for which economic development occurs. No, as we have known in economics, economic development depends on several factors, right? Such as countries of population size, global situation, and also if you talk about that, cooperation from other countries. So these are the things which are highly necessary. What are they? Now, countries population. So means what is the size of the population? Second is called as what is the situation of the country in the global world, and the third is called as how does other country or other countries, how do other countries cooperate you? Economic priorities adopted by the country, right? So the difference in rates of economic development between less developed countries with the dictatorships and democracies is negligible. The difference in the rates of economic development between less developed countries with the dictatorships and democracies is negligible. Overall, we cannot say that democracy is a guarantee of economic development, but we can expect in a democratic country, democracy not to lag behind dictatorships in this respect. So as the comparison and through the conclusion that as you live in a democratic country, you should not lag behind means your economic development in compared to dictatorship, right? When we find such a significant or important difference in the rates of economic growth between countries under dictatorships and democracy, it is better to prefer democracy as it has several other positive outcomes. Though you find out it's not higher economic development in compared to or with a dictatorship, but at the same time it has several other positive factors. So you can see there is a cartoon on this page, right? Uh, Tells us about the disparity between the rich and poor. Disparity means that's called as a contradiction between the rich and poor. Should the gains of economic growth be evenly distributed? How can the poor get a voice for a better share in a nation? What can the poor countries do to receive a greater share in the world's health? So this one is called as a rich, right? Who becomes richer, and this one is called as a middle. So that's called as economic growth and income distribution gains or profit 2000 to 2006. So this is indicating about it, economic outcomes of democracy. Arguments about democracy tend to be very passionate. This is how it should be. For democracy appeals to some of our deep values. These debates cannot be resolved in a simple manner, but some debates about democracy can and should be resolved by referring to some facts and figures. The debate about the economic outcomes of democracy is one such debate. Over the years, many students of democracy have gathered careful evidence to see what the relationship of democracy with economic growth and economic inequalities. The tables and the cartoon presented in the book, presenting some of the evidences. So like, let's look into the first picture, picture one or table one, shows that on the average dictatorial, so the countries which have a dictatorial rules have had a slightly better record of economic growth. But when we compare the record only in poor countries, there is virtually no difference, right? So table two, the second picture shows that within democracies, there can be very high degree of inequalities. Within democracies, there can be very high degree of inequalities. In democratic countries like South Africa and Brazil, the top 20% people take away more than 60% of the national income, leaving less than 3% for the bottom 20% population. Countries like Denmark and Hungary are much better in this respect. You can see in the cartoon, there is often inequality of opportunity available to the poorer sections. So by looking into such kind of a discussion, what would be what would be people's verdict or people's judgment on democracy? If you had to base it purely on economic performance of democratic rules in terms of growth and equal distribution, right? So this is table one or table two, right? So table one is indicating about 1950 to 2000 economic growth for different countries. Table two indicates about inequalities of income in selected countries. Now, so all total, if you talk about economic development, right, uh, in democracy, so we withdraw that means the passage discusses about how the income inequality finds out in our democratic country, whereas means in dictatorship rules, so means the economic development is higher rate, right? And we also draw some of the pictures which are clearly showing the the distant differentiation between uh, dictatorship and democracy. So though democracy is not only one region in which economic development decreases, but at the same time means we have several other regions for which what happened means economic development doesn't occur. Now, moving to the next one, that's called as a reduction of inequality and poverty. Reduction means reducing, right? Reducing what? Inequality. Inequality means what? Now, there is no comparison or no equality, and also poverty. So we need to reduce the inequality present in a democratic country and also poorness or poverty. Perhaps more than development, it is reasonable to expect democracies to reduce economic disparities or problems. Even when a country achieves economic growth, will wealth be distributed in such a way that all citizens of the country will have a share and lead a better life. So, uh, and is economic growth in democracies accompanied by increased inequalities among the people? or do democracies lead to just distribution of goods and opportunities? So these are the two questions or three questions which have been pointed. That what all citizens of the country means referring to the democratic country, will have a share and lead a better life, is it? Or second is called as is economic growth in democracies accompanied by increased inequalities among the people. Third is called as increased inequalities among the people, right? Or is economic growth in democracies accompanied by increased inequalities among the people? Or do democracies lead to a just distribution of goods and opportunity, nothing else? So these are the couple of questions which have been pointed. And then after, it is tried to justify through the answers. Democracies are based on political equality, right? Democracy is what? Now that refers to the political equality. All individuals have equal weight in electing representation or representatives. Parallel to the process of bringing individuals into the political arena on any footing, any equal footing, we find growing income inequalities. A small number of ultra-rich enjoy a highly disproportionate share of wealth and incomes. Not only that, their share in the total income of the country has been increasing. So if you talk about it, it is beautifully Mulk Raj Anand said that India is a kind of a country, right? So where rich becomes richer and the poor becomes poorer. So that is what we find out, income inequality, right? So not only that, their share in the total income of the country has been increasing. Those who are at the bottom, at the lowest of the society, they have very little to depend upon, right? So they have very little, right? And their income increasing is very less, right? So their incomes have been decreasing or declining. Sometimes they find it difficult to meet their basic needs of life, such as food, clothing, house, education, and health, right? So in actual life, democracies do not appear to be very successful in reducing income inequalities, or called as economic inequality, right? So we know that we have read one of the chapter called as poverty in India in 9th standard. The poor constitute a large proportion of our voters, and no party will like to lose their votes. Yet democratically elected governments do not appear to be as interested to address the question of poverty as you would expect them to. The situation is much worse in some other countries. In Bangladesh, more than half of its population lives in poverty, right? So people in several poor countries are now dependent on the rich countries, even for poor supplies, right? So in the case like this, so where we draw nothing but the comparison we made with the India with Bangladesh, and stating about the condition and how means democracy play the role for the economic development. So even you can see this picture where you will find out 50%, right, is indication of what means rich people, right? Rich or 50% is given to the poor people, whereas the 2% is given to the 2% rich people are acquiring a large portion of means you can say that profit, whereas 50% people are holding means or yeah, 50% people are holding very less amount of things, right, in democratic country. So accommodation of social diversity. Accommodation means what? Taking place of social diversity. Social diversity means called as a variety. Do democracies lead to peaceful and harmonious life among citizens? So the question is called as a, do democracies lead to peaceful and harmonious? Harmonious means called as a peaceful life, right, among citizens, right? It will be a fair expectation that democracy should produce a harmonious social life. We have seen in the earlier chapters how democracies accommodate various social divisions. We saw in the first chapter how Belgium has successfully negotiated differences among ethnic population. Democracy usually develop a procedure to conduct their competition. This reduces the possibility of these tensions becoming explosive or violent. No society can fully and permanently resolve conflicts among different groups, but we can certainly learn to respect these differences, and we can also evolve mechanism to negotiate the differences. Democracy is best suited to produce this outcome. Non-democratic rules often turn a blind eye to our supernatural internal social differences. Ability to handle social differences, different divisions and conflicts is therefore a definite plus point of democratic rules. But the example of Sri Lanka reminds us that a democracy must fulfill two conditions in order to achieve this outcome. In order to achieve this outcome means which outcomes? Now, the outcome which is referred to the means uh, that the kind of social differences, divisions, and conflicts, right? It is necessary to understand that democracy is not simply ruled by majority opinion. So it is not that democracy is not simply ruled by majority opinion. The majority always needs to work with the minority so that governments function to represent the general view, right? Government function to represent the general view. So government uh, means general opinion should go to the government. Majority and minority opinions are not permanent, right? So it is also necessary that rule by majority does not become rule by majority community in terms of religion or race or linguistic group. Rule by majority means that in case of every decision or in case of every elections, different persons and groups may end, groups may and can form a majority. So democracy remains democracy only as long as every citizen has a chance of being majority at some point of time. If someone is barred from being in majority on the basis of birth, then the democratic rule stops to be accommodative for that person or group, right? So this particular passage is stating about how the social diversity uh, took place in democratic country, right? So the next one, which is stated, enemies, greetings. So the two images depicts two different kinds of effects democratic politics can have on social division. Take one example for each, each image and write a paragraph each on the outcome of democratic politics in both situations. Okay. So this one is indicating dignity and freedom of the citizens. Dignity means what? Self-respect, and freedom is called as liberty. So self-respect and liberty of the citizens. Democracy stands much superior to any other form of government. Democracy stands what? Now much superior, means powerful to any other form of government. So whether you are talking about a dictatorship or you talk about plutocracy, monarchy, in all these other forms, democracy plays very important role. Promoting what? Self-respect and freedom of the individual. Every individual who wants to receive respect from fellow beings, often conflicts arise among individuals because some feel that they are not treated with the due respect. The passion for respect and freedom are the basis of democracy. Democracy through the world have recognized this, at least in principle. This has been achieved in various degrees in various democracies. For societies which have been built for long on the basis of long built for the long on the basis of subordination and domination. It is not a simple matter to recognize that all individuals are equal, right? Take the case of dignity of women. Most societies across the world were historically male-dominated society. So India is a kind of a country where you will find out means it is historically male-dominated societies. Long struggles by women have created some sensitivity today that respect to and equal treatment of women are necessary ingredients of a democratic society, right? So women also need equality and also means freedom. That does not mean that women are actually always treated with respect, right? So, but once the principle is recognized, it becomes easier for women to wage a struggle against what is now unacceptable. So you can say that they may rage, right? They demand. They demand for what? Now they demand for a struggle against what is now unacceptable legally and morally. In a non-democratic setup, this unacceptability would not have legal basis because the principle of individual freedom uh, and dignity would not have the legal and moral force there. The same is true of caste inequality. Democracy in India has strengthened means given the power, the claims of the disadvantaged and discriminated cases for equal status and equal opportunity. These are instances still of caste-based inequalities and atrocities. But these lack the moral and legal foundation. Perhaps it is the recognition that makes ordinary citizen value their democratic right. Expectation from democracy also function as the criteria for judging any democratic country. What is most unique about democracy is that its examination never gets over. So you would find out in a democratic country, so there is a rule of every 5 year, right? A general election held, and through that means people elect a government, right? As democracy passes one test, as democracy passes one test, right, it produces another test. As people get some benefit of democracy, they ask for more and want to make democracy even better. That is why when we ask people about the way democracy functions, they will always come up with more expectation and many complaints. The fact that people are complaining is itself but evidence to success of democracy. It shows that people have developed awareness and the ability to expect and to look critically at the power holders and the high and the mighty. A public expression of dissatisfaction. Expression of dissatisfaction means they are not feeling happy with the democracy, shows the success of democratic project. So a public expression of dissatisfaction with the democracy shows the success of democratic project. It changes people from the status of a subject into that of a citizen. Most individuals today believe that their vote makes a difference to the way the government is run and to their own self-interest. Yeah, that's true. Or it is true. You would find out that means I give the vote, and because of my vote, what happened? Means the government may means win, or the government may rule, or the government may means deject, right? So that is why each vote has its own ability and capability, right, to tackle. Okay, so we have just gone through means a certain portion which we left dignity and freedom of the citizens. So it says about the respect and the liberty of the citizens. Earlier to that, we also discussed about the social diversity. So how do we accommodate of social diversity? And the third one is called as a reduction of inequality and poverty. Reducing, right? And then the fourth one, which is called as a economic growth and economic distribution, or you can say that means economic growth and development. These are the things you find out here. Okay, so Can you identify any other doubts here? Please do ask. Any doubt so far you have? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you ask me any doubt if you have? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you ask me any doubt if you have?
Yes, sir.
Anything that you want to ask? No?
Yes, sir.
Okay.